What if I told you that one of the most controversial political figures in recent American history has written what might be his most important book yet? Today, we're diving deep into Donald Trump's 2024 release, Save America, a book that's already sparking intense debates across the political spectrum and could reshape how we think about America's future. Now, before we jump in, I want to be completely transparent with you. This isn't about politics or taking sides. This is about understanding ideas that are influencing millions of Americans right now. Whether you love Trump or can't stand him, the concepts in this book are driving conversations in boardrooms, living rooms, and voting booths across the country. And as someone who spent years analysing political literature, I can tell you that ignoring these ideas won't make them go away. What makes this book particularly fascinating is its timing. Released during one of the most tumultuous periods in American history, Save America presents Trump's vision for addressing what he sees as existential threats to the nation. From economic policy to cultural issues, from foreign relations to domestic security, Trump lays out a comprehensive roadmap that his supporters view as essential and his critics see as dangerous. But here's what's really interesting. Regardless of your political affiliation, this book offers insights into the mindset of a movement that's fundamentally changed American politics. Understanding these perspectives isn't just academic exercise, it's crucial for anyone trying to navigate our current political landscape. Save America represents Donald Trump's most comprehensive political manifesto since leaving the presidency. Published in 2024, this book emerges during a critical juncture in American history as the nation grapples with deep political divisions, economic uncertainty, and questions about its role on the global stage. Trump positions this work not merely as a political treatise, but as an urgent call to action for Americans who share his vision of national restoration. The book's central thesis revolves around Trump's belief that America faces unprecedented internal and external threats that require immediate and decisive action. He argues that traditional political approaches have failed to address these challenges, necessitating what he describes as a fundamental restructuring of how government operates and how citizens engage with their democracy. Trump presents himself as uniquely qualified to lead this transformation, drawing on his experience as both a businessman and former president. What distinguishes Save America from typical political books is its blend of memoir, policy prescription, and rallying cry. Trump weaves personal anecdotes from his presidency with detailed policy proposals, creating a narrative that's both retrospective and forward-looking. The tone is characteristically direct and uncompromising, reflecting Trump's communication style while addressing supporters who view him as their champion against what they perceive as establishment corruption. The book's structure mirrors Trump's approach to governance, bold assertions backed by specific examples and concrete proposals. He doesn't shy away from controversial topics, instead embracing them as necessary conversations that mainstream politicians avoid. This directness has already made Save America a lightning rod for debate, with supporters praising its clarity and critics questioning its feasibility. Trump's writing reflects his belief that America's greatness isn't a historical accident, but the result of specific principles and practices that must be actively preserved and strengthened. He presents this preservation as both a moral imperative and a practical necessity for ensuring America's continued prosperity and security. Save America unfolds as Trump's comprehensive blueprint for national renewal, structured around his core belief that America's foundational strengths have been systematically undermined by decades of misguided policies and cultural shifts. The book opens with Trump's assessment of current challenges, painting a picture of a nation at a crossroads where traditional solutions have proven inadequate. Trump begins by examining what he views as the erosion of American economic dominance, attributing this decline to trade policies that prioritized globalization over national interests. He argues that previous administrations, both Republican and Democrat, failed to recognize how international competitors exploited America's openness while protecting their own markets. This economic analysis forms the foundation for his broader argument about American vulnerability. The narrative then shifts to domestic issues, where Trump addresses what he sees as the breakdown of law and order in American cities. He presents detailed examples of how progressive policies have, in his view, created conditions that undermine public safety and community stability. This section reveals Trump's belief that strong leadership and clear consequences are essential for maintaining social cohesion. Cultural and educational themes occupy significant portions of the book, with Trump arguing that American institutions have been captured by ideologies that contradict the nation's founding principles. He presents this as more than political disagreement, framing it as a fundamental conflict over American identity and values. His proposed solutions emphasize returning to what he considers traditional American approaches to education, citizenship, and civic engagement. The book's latter sections focus on foreign policy, where Trump advocates for what he terms principled realism, an approach that prioritizes American interests while maintaining strength-based diplomacy. He critiques current international arrangements as constraining American sovereignty while failing to deliver promised benefits. Throughout these discussions, Trump emphasizes the need for leaders who prioritize national interests over international opinion. The first major theme Trump develops concerns economic sovereignty and trade relationships. He argues that America's economic challenges stem from decades of trade agreements that prioritized theoretical benefits over practical outcomes. Trump presents specific examples of how manufacturing jobs moved overseas not due to natural economic forces, but because of policy decisions that failed to protect American workers. He advocates for trade policies that explicitly prioritize American economic interests, even when this creates friction with international partners. This approach, he argues, would restore manufacturing capacity and reduce dependence on potentially hostile nations for critical supplies. Trump's second major focus addresses what he characterizes as the weaponization of government institutions against political opponents. He presents detailed accounts of how federal agencies have been used to target individuals and groups based on their political beliefs rather than legitimate legal concerns. This section includes examples from his own experiences with investigations and prosecutions, which he frames as part of a broader pattern of institutional abuse. Trump argues that restoring faith in government requires fundamentally restructuring these agencies to prevent future political targeting while maintaining their legitimate functions. The third significant theme involves immigration and border security, where Trump presents his view that current policies have created a national security crisis. He argues that uncontrolled immigration undermines both economic opportunities for American workers and the social cohesion necessary for democratic governance. Trump provides specific examples of how immigration policies affect local communities, from school resources to public safety concerns. His proposed solutions emphasize rapid deportation of illegal immigrants and strict enforcement of existing laws, combined with merit-based legal immigration that serves American economic interests. Trump's fourth major point addresses what he sees as the corruption of American educational institutions. He argues that universities and public schools have been captured by ideologies that contradict American values and prepare students poorly for productive citizenship. This section includes examples of how educational policies have, in his view, undermined academic excellence while promoting divisive social theories. Trump advocates for educational reforms that emphasize traditional academic subjects, American history, and civic education that promotes national unity rather than ethnic or racial division. The fifth theme concerns media and information control, where Trump argues that major news organizations and social media platforms have formed what he characterizes as a propaganda network that suppresses conservative viewpoints while promoting progressive narratives. He presents specific examples of how news stories have been manipulated or suppressed to influence public opinion and electoral outcomes. Trump's proposed solutions include regulatory changes that would treat social media platforms as public utilities, while strengthening protections for free speech across all platforms. Trump's sixth major focus involves healthcare policy, where he argues the current systems have been designed to benefit insurance companies and pharmaceutical corporations rather than patients. He presents examples of how regulatory capture has increased healthcare costs while reducing quality and accessibility. Trump advocates for market-based solutions that increase competition and transparency while reducing government interference in doctor-patient relationships. This approach, he argues, would lower costs while improving outcomes for American families. The seventh significant theme addresses foreign policy and international relations, where Trump argues that America's global commitments have become unsustainable and counterproductive. He presents specific examples of how international agreements have constrained American options while failing to deliver promised benefits. Trump advocates for foreign policy approaches that prioritize American interests and use economic leverage to achieve diplomatic objectives. This includes reducing military commitments that don't serve clear American interests, while maintaining strength to deter potential adversaries. The eighth major point concerns energy policy and environmental regulation, where Trump argues that current policies have undermined American energy independence while failing to achieve environmental objectives. He presents examples of how regulatory restrictions have increased energy costs and dependence on foreign suppliers, particularly those from hostile nations. Trump advocates for energy policies that prioritise American production and innovation while rejecting international agreements that constrain American economic development without meaningful environmental benefits. The first crucial takeaway from Save America is Trump's emphasis on economic nationalism as a governing philosophy. He argues that successful nations must prioritise their own economic interests over abstract principles of global cooperation. This lesson suggests that trade policies should be evaluated based on their impact on American workers and industries rather than their conformity to international economic theories. Trump presents this approach as both morally justified and practically necessary for maintaining national sovereignty in an increasingly competitive global environment. The second important lesson involves the relationship between strong leadership and social stability. Trump argues that effective governance requires leaders who are willing to make unpopular decisions and enforce clear standards of behaviour. He presents examples of how weak leadership has led to social breakdown in various American communities, while strong leadership has restored order and prosperity. This takeaway suggests that voters should prioritise candidates who demonstrate strength and decisiveness over those who seek to avoid controversy or conflict. Trump's third key insight concerns the importance of controlling information flows in modern democracies. He argues that whoever controls media and educational institutions effectively controls political outcomes, regardless of formal democratic processes. This lesson emphasises the need for conservatives to build alternative information networks and educational institutions that can compete with existing progressive-dominated systems. Trump presents this as essential for maintaining genuine democratic choice rather than manufactured consent. The fourth significant takeaway involves the connection between cultural confidence and national strength. Trump argues that nations that lose faith in their own values and history become vulnerable to external manipulation and internal division. He presents examples of how cultural relativism has undermined American institutions and social cohesion. This lesson suggests that maintaining national strength requires active promotion of American values and history rather than passive acceptance of cultural change. Trump's fifth important insight concerns the role of immigration in shaping national identity and economic opportunity. He argues that uncontrolled immigration undermines both the economic prospects of existing citizens and the social cohesion necessary for democratic governance. This takeaway emphasises the need for immigration policies that serve national interest rather than abstract humanitarian principles. Trump presents this as essential for maintaining the social trust necessary for effective democratic institutions. The sixth key lesson involves the importance of energy independence for national security and economic prosperity. Trump argues that dependence on foreign energy sources creates vulnerabilities that hostile nations can exploit for political and economic advantage. He presents examples of how energy policies affect everything from manufacturing costs to foreign policy options. This insight suggests that energy independence should be a primary consideration in all regulatory and policy decisions. Trump's seventh significant takeaway concerns the relationship between regulatory capture and economic stagnation. He argues that major corporations and government agencies have formed partnerships that serve their mutual interests while harming consumers and competitors. This lesson emphasises the need for regulatory reforms that break up these cosy relationships and restore genuine market competition. Trump presents this as essential for maintaining economic dynamism and innovation. The eighth important insight involves the connection between institutional trust and democratic legitimacy. Trump argues that when government institutions are perceived as partisan or corrupt, democratic governance becomes impossible regardless of formal procedures. He presents examples of how institutional bias has undermined public confidence in everything from elections to law enforcement. This takeaway suggests that restoring democratic legitimacy requires fundamental reforms to ensure institutional neutrality and accountability. The ninth key lesson concerns the importance of American manufacturing capacity for both economic prosperity and national security. Trump argues that the decline of American manufacturing has created vulnerabilities that foreign competitors can exploit during crises. He presents examples of how manufacturing decline has affected both local communities and national capabilities. This insight suggests that industrial policy should prioritise rebuilding American manufacturing capacity, even when this requires short-term economic costs. The 10th significant takeaway involves the relationship between education and civic engagement. Trump argues that educational institutions have a responsibility to prepare students for productive citizenship rather than political activism. He presents examples of how educational policies have affected both academic achievement and social cohesion. This lesson emphasises the need for educational reforms that prioritise traditional academic subjects and civic education over ideological indoctrination. Save America ultimately represents Donald Trump's most comprehensive attempt to articulate a governing philosophy for conservative America. Whether readers agree with his conclusions or not, the book provides crucial insights into the mindset of a political movement that has fundamentally reshaped American politics. Trump's arguments about economic nationalism, institutional reform, and cultural restoration will likely influence political debates for years to come. The book's significance extends beyond its immediate political impact. Trump's critique of existing institutions and his proposed alternatives offer a window into how millions of Americans understand their current challenges and potential solutions. His emphasis on strength-based leadership and America First policies reflects broader concerns about national sovereignty and democratic accountability that transcend partisan divisions. For readers seeking to understand contemporary American politics, Save America provides essential context for ongoing debates about trade, immigration, education, and foreign policy. Trump's arguments may be controversial, but they address real concerns that resonate with significant portions of the American electorate. Ignoring these perspectives limits our ability to understand and address the challenges facing American democracy. The book's lasting contribution may be its articulation of an alternative vision for American governance that prioritises national interest over international consensus. Whether this vision proves sustainable or desirable remains to be seen, but its influence on American political discourse is undeniable. Save America serves as both a historical document and a political roadmap that will shape debates about America's future direction for years to come.